Patreon!
Bite-sized, Rafi and clean. The same awesome flavor in a smaller package. And always filler-free. May contain peanut gallery.
Hola, you amazing artists! Today, we are going to talk about Patreon.
Yeah, and what the heck to do with it.
You guys know that within the last year, we started a Patreon page just because we wanted to figure out, like, what is this Patreon thing about? It's been an amazing experience so far.
Yeah.
But it's still quite confusing, and I think this question really covers the confusion that comes with Patreon.
Our awesome question comes from Cheryl Ann Hills. Hi, Cheryl. Cheryl's beautiful work can be seen on Instagram at Cheryl Ann Hills Artist.
Beautiful work.
Or
Beautiful
CherylAnnHillsArtist.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your art, really awesome. Cheryl listens to our podcast, watches our YouTube vids, is one of our awesome patrons on Patreon, and follows our blog.
Aw, freaking love Cheryl.
Yeah. So here's what Cheryl had to say.
Okay.
I've been following Rafi the Inspiral and Clee the Cleverest for just over a year now through this Mordorian landscape called Earth. And I have to say, you guys are essential humans in my books.
Aw.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I put off creating a Patreon for my followers because I figured who the heck would care to join me? Tree trolls or halflings? Then after watching, listening, reading your umpteen mentions about Patreon, I finally took the chance and just did it. Yes. Crickets immediately inhabited the void I had created. And then, boom, a hole. Well, more like a crack appeared in the space-time continuum that is my existence. And voila, I have a patron.
Woo! Yeah.
Woohoo! And also, dun, dun, dun! Patreon congratulated me and then asked me to welcome them. Yikes, what? I had no idea what to say, so I just wrote some really embarrassing welcome message and then went to my page the next morning, and now I'm sitting here reading and staring and thinking and following shiny objects and not sure where to start. Apparently now I have to create meaningful content to offer my patrons help! Yes, Patreon has some nice little guides and tips, but to be honest, mostly I just need courage. I already have a brain and a heart. Yeah. Do you have any helpful tips on what I could offer my patrons that they will actually like? I want to make them happy and show them my most humble appreciation. Thanking you both in advance. Cheryl.
Cheryl, that is a great question because over the last year since we started the Patreon page, I personally have gone through a roller coaster of emotions.
Right?
I forget what were the perks that I started with, and now the perks are actually completely different than they were when I first started.
Yeah.
It is an interesting dynamic because we have these videos that we put out on YouTube, and we've got this whole video side of what we do, and we don't actually make any money to support a lot of the equipment and stuff that we gotten. So, like, the fact that we have patrons that are willing to support us in that way so that we can make these videos just blew my mind. But immediately along with that came the caveat of, like, I gotta do something extra special for them. These videos are random, right? We talk about random things that have to do with being artists and being in the art world. And I tried to do something that was like regimented, like every month you're going to get this and this. If you're part of this tier, part of that tier. And what I found was I don't work well with regiment. I don't work well with having a script.
Thou art random AF.
I had to be as random on Patreon as I am here, but still giving people enough where I felt like I was doing the most for them. And we do like extra live streams on there, and we do all this extra stuff with our patrons. But most of all, what I figured out, it wasn't about the perks. It was about building the community that we built. And that's what I enjoy the most about Patreon, is that we have this very, very amazing creative community of rogues that we all really, really support each other. And that's amazing, because nobody there is looking to me as an art mentor, because I don't want to be an art mentor. I'm just an artist who is out there sharing whatever it is that he sees or thinks about sharing. So, like, I also share a lot of like motivational MP3s and weird pictures of us where we're, the photo reference things. So, like, I have a lot of fun with my patrons, but I don't worry about the content, meaning something to them, because that's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, and they all get something different out of it anyway. Some of them don't care at all what we post. Some of them are there for one specific thing or a couple specific things. What we did was, and we revisit this so often.
Yeah.
What do we think we might enjoy sharing, that we're going to have a good time, and that maybe they'll have a good time too?
Yeah.
And then that just totally evolves and it changes as time goes on. And some of our patrons have been like, we would like this. And we're like, okay, maybe we'll try that. Or like, no, not so much on that.
Yeah, there are some things where like, we would like this. I'm like, no, not going to happen. What ended up happening with Patreon towards the beginning was I was trying to do all these things that I didn't really want to do, but I thought maybe this is what
you're supposed to do.
And what ended up happening was that it got really stressful and I got burned out. So our Patreon right now is set up in a way where the only things that I'm doing is stuff that I really, really enjoy sharing with our patrons. And so the people that are like us and really get something out of it, they'll sign up and stay with us. And then people that sign up and are expecting something else, they'll just leave. They weed themselves out because really when it comes down to it, it's your Patreon page. So it's whatever it is that you want to share.
I think that's the most important thing is you're a talented, clever, fun human and you can't get it wrong.
Yeah. You can't get it wrong. And, we have some patrons that are just there because they want to be part of our artistic journey. There are some patrons that are just there because they want to support the video side of what we do. There are some patrons that are just there because they like some of the perks. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, everybody that's there, we have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So like that's really for me what it comes down to. Now, Cheryl, for you, like a lot of artists that are on Patreon do whatever it is that really is their strength. There are some artists that do tutorials. They do additional tutorials and they teach and they do things like that. And I think that that's great. It's just not my bag. So for me, it was a little bit more difficult. And I think really it comes down to your personality, what it is that you want to share, and what you want your Patreon channel to be. Do you want your Patreon channel to be geared towards people who collect your art and are there to support your art career? People that watch your videos, and if you have videos like us where it's geared towards artists, or you have people that want to support that side of what you do. I think you have to determine like what theme, what little thing, what project, what art project is it that you want to share specifically on Patreon for your patrons that are following you.
And remember, it's okay to change your mind. We've done it plenty of times on Patreon where we decide we're no longer doing this thing or we're going to add this thing. Yep. It's okay for it to evolve. So don't think like you have to know exactly right now, henceforth, what you shall do.
Yeah, it's going to evolve because the same thing happens to people when they start YouTube videos. They go into doing something that they know is popular, and then a lot of YouTubers end up feeling stuck, or even artists, when it comes to the specific art that they're creating, they feel stuck because they have a following or they have collectors, they have people that are used to them creating this one specific thing. And then they want to change their mind or change direction and they feel stuck because they're afraid of letting other people down. Really, when it comes down to it, like you gotta not worry about letting other people down if you're not being true to yourself. Even if it means that you're going to lose a bunch of followers or lose patrons or lose collectors, just head in whatever direction it is that you want to head in. You are clever and you are amazing. And I think that whatever you offer is going to be great. And I don't think that that's the place that you really would need help in. I feel like for you, you've got this. You've got this. Just have fun with it. Don't take it so seriously. And that's why I was saying in the beginning, like when money gets involved, our mind gets all topsy-turvy and we tend to start taking things a little, this is a serious thing now. Mm-hmm. I have a paying patron. And like when you do that and you go in that direction, the fun kind of goes out the window.
It can sometimes.
So just keep your Patreon fun. Keep anything that you're doing fun, and make sure that it is you. It's who you are.
You've already gotten over the hurdle of actually doing the thing.
I know, and the crack has opened.
Indeed. Who knows what will come through there?
Patreon has a lot of things where they'll give you suggestions for the perks and different things like that. And there are a lot of videos out there that from people that are on Patreon that give advice to artists or musicians or any kind of artists out there to do their Patreon. And it's all good stuff. But really what it comes down to is like, what is it that you want to share that is part of who you are? What is it that you are motivated to create? Because if you create something because these people are paying you for it, but your heart's not really into it, eventually that could lead to burnout. Because then you're like running a Patreon business and running this business and running that business. And if it's about the money, then it just becomes about business and not fun. Keep the fun, because you are fun. We freaking adore you.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Cheryl Ann. This is a great question. I know a lot of people are curious about Patreon.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the answer that we have now, because we're not experts at Patreon.
No.
We're still figuring it out as we go, and it's something that we evaluate every day. But the most important thing is, when we are evaluating, is this still fun? Because that's ultimately what matters to me. Am I making the most bang for my buck? Like, no, that's not it. It's like, is this still fun? Is this still something that I could get behind and be motivated doing? Or do I need to walk away? And so far, we've managed to keep it fun.
Most definitely.
Even though we did dip there at a point, and I was like, this is too much. But we just changed everything up on Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, for you, it's recognizing when you're doing the most, and maybe you need to rein it in. I'm curious to hear from you guys. Do any of you guys have a Patreon? Are any of you guys subscribed to a Patreon? What kind of content are you sharing? What kind of content do you like consuming on Patreon?
On Patreon, yeah. Go ahead and share that with Cheryl in the comments below. Let's help each other out here, because we definitely don't have the answers when it comes to Patreon.
Nay.
Do I think you should do it? It's just another thing. It's another way of putting yourself out there. And I know that it sucks when there's crickets and like nothing is going on any of the platforms that you're doing. But you got to remember, like, we all get started somewhere.
We had no idea what Patreon was going to evolve into. Could never have predicted it.
Yeah, we just tried it out. And right now we have an amazing rogue artist community on there. And I definitely am very happy that we decided to do it.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Because the support and love that we get from them is there. It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for watching, you guys. You guys are absolutely freaking amazing. I totally adore you. And if you like this and you want to watch more like this, just click right over here to subscribe. And that's it. Say goodbye, Clee.
Good day.
Adios.